Hey guys, how's it going? It's your boy M.K.S here, back in another video. Hope you're well wherever you are, and also this is part 2 of I suppose my vision for South Africa and what I hope will improve South Africa. I hope these ideas can somehow be implemented and benefit South Africa, and maybe put it into people's conscience or whatever, and encourage people to support South Africa, especially people of color, P.O.C. People of colour put in speech marks for some reason, or anti-racist generally, due to its history of apartheid. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video, and as ever, I would love to read your suggestions, comments, concerns, queries, or whatever you want to post in the comment section, hopefully as politely as possible. All opinions accepted, even if you think I talk a lot of nonsense, then that's fair enough. You can type that if you want, if you must. But again, I hope it will be polite. Anyway, I'm going to try and stop waffling and crack on with my list. So please check out part 1 if you haven't already done so at some point, and maybe I'll make part 3 later and part 4 tomorrow. I'm thinking because it's the 25th tomorrow, and the number 25 reminds me of republics, South Africa being a republic. I thought maybe I'd wait till tomorrow. I'm not sure, because I'm a bit impatient. But anyway, here goes. So as I mentioned in part 1, I think it'd be great if Malaysia, India, Indonesia, Singapore and the rest of Asia, as well as Africa, supports South Africa, and like also Saudi Arabia, as they share the same initial. I know Saudi Arabia, or same initials rather. I know Saudi Arabia already does have partnerships with or deals with South Africa. And I think it'd be great if they, if like Saudi, if there was a company called Saudi or whatnot, which would seek to support South Africa to have as much access to training, STEM, and all that kind of thing as possible, access to clean water, food, and all that kind of thing, funding, all those sorts of things. So anyway, here goes. So number 11, in the past, due to apartheid, and on that note, I think it'd be great if people learned about apartheid and the history. Hopefully that would encourage them to support South Africa and the people of colour in South Africa, or diverse groups in South Africa, especially people of colour or anti-racist ourselves. South Africa went through apartheid, of course, and a lot of money was drawn out of South Africa due to apartheid. So people withdrew investments and things like that, or consumers like stopped buying from South Africa and things like that. And I think, as cool as that was, and as good as that may have helped to contribute to tackling it, I suppose that probably ended apartheid, because it financially, although officially. Technically, apartheid is not over, although it kind of is officially over in terms of by the rules, but it kind of helped to bring it to an end, at least officially. But the gap between the black people and white people in terms of ownership and earnings and things like that, as far as I'm aware, is still quite big. So yeah, supporting black-owned businesses and people of colour in South Africa, as well as inventors, ideas, people, investors, and things like that. I think it'd be cool if people supported the inaugural investments in South Africa, and they invited as many potential investors, nations, countries, whatever you call them, I suppose nations/countries, I suppose that means the same thing, sovereign wealth funds and all possible investors, hedge funds, banks, businesses, and all those who invest either as individuals or groups, maybe even Berkshire Hathaway, Cascade Investments, and all sorts of investors, say hedge funds and like Bridgewater and whatnot, to investing in South Africa, and maybe even dyslexic investors. I've talked about dyslexia and stuff like that, and helping their fellow dyslexics, especially those of colour in South Africa, of colour, as I say. But yeah, also supporting inventors, ideas, people, changing people's perception, having more positive stories, success stories, and that kind of thing from South Africa as well. I think that would be pretty cool. And if as many investors, nations themselves, like through sovereign wealth funds, like Saudi Arabia and Malaysia, India, Indonesia, Singapore, and places like that, other nations from across Africa, Asia, and also Latin America, maybe even Ireland, and also anti-imperialist and anti-racist groups, that kind of thing, going to South Africa. Number 12, it'd be cool if they had like mentorship programs and that kind of thing, and looked at role models and again success stories. But again, I think it'd be cool if they had as many events as possible, like anti-racism events, events as often as possible, where they could organize it to bring in as many investors as possible, and things like that, to encourage people to invest in South Africa and support them, and especially anti-racist groups, as I say, and people of colour, to sort of I'm just trying to sell my vision, so to speak, of how I think that I want to sell people to think, like people of color especially, and anti-racist perhaps generally, to think about how apartheid was sort of saying that all people of color, as far as I'm aware, black, Asian, mixed race, and whatnot, are inferior to the whites, and so yeah, I think that we should try and show we support each other. So I think if a black person, I hope to change their mind. I think it's a pretty good thing to buy from South Africa, and maybe even invest in South Africa and support South Africa, and look at how to encourage portfolios to invest in South Africa. It shows we support each other and can showcase that the white supremacists hopefully are wrong, and that we are capable of uniting and doing well, and that kind of thing. Also tackling xenophobia on that note and things like in South Africa, like where they fight other Africans and stuff like that. I hope to unite the continent generally. Number 13, I'm prepared to listen to alternative opinions, and I know there are a lot of problems in South Africa, and that kind of thing. Number 14, hopefully South Africa can be supported to solve their problems through investments and things like that. I know money isn't everything, but it does help in this world to have the investments and stuff like that. Number 15, I hope to hear from South Africans again, as I mentioned in part 1, about their aims, aspirations, and that kind of thing, both of individuals and of countries, and again how they can work with Malaysia, India, Indonesia, Singapore, other parts of Asia, other parts of Africa as well, and also, as I say, Saudi Arabia, and to talk about shared goals, so how they can help each other to achieve their full potential and that kind of thing. Number 16, I'd love to read and hear from other people's ideas, and maybe there could be like committees, think tanks, brainstorms, networks, cooperatives, whatever you want to call them, which have the sole purpose of looking at how to best benefit South Africa. I think that's another idea South Africa could invest in, so to speak, with its time, possibly money as well, to sort of encourage people to come together and talk about what are the best ways to benefit South Africa, how they can work with the black diaspora or people of color, anti-racist groups, and people generally within South Africa itself, as well as outside of South Africa as well, that want to see the best for South Africa as a nation, country, whatever you put it. All together. Number 17, I'd love to support South African businesses and brands and things like that. And again, for Italian football and Celtic to have a partnership with South Africa, where they look at how they can benefit South Africa. Going on my patterns and alliterations, like I think it'd be called if Sampdoria, Sassuolo, Salernitana, maybe even Spal and Spezia, or Spezia, how we pronounce it, which are all Italian teams. I suppose they all begin with S, but maybe Serie A generally, Italian teams generally, whether based on alliterations or not. It'd be cool to see them benefiting South Africa. Number 18, again, I'd love to hear positive success stories, positive things about South Africa, showing what South Africans and Africans generally can do. Like I say, African can do, attitudes and stuff like that. Number 19, I'd love to support South African software developers as well as content creators. And number 20, I'd love to support South Africans in STEM. And again, those investors that come into the country, hopefully will support things like that, like providing clean water, access to clean water, food, shelter, PCs, laptops, or mobile phones, or all three of those, or two, or even all three of those, and training opportunities in STEM and fundraising for equipment which would help them in science, tech, engineering, and maths, i.e. STEM. Anywho, I hope you enjoyed this video, and I am out. Peace and love.